All right, Curtis,
Hi,
welcome.
thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I don't know. Let's. So you're a printmaker.
Yes, I've been studying printmaking for the last 4 years, and yeah, I started off at a TAFE and currently finishing off my degree at university for printmaking.
All right, tell us a little bit about printmaking. Like, what's it involve?
So,
What drew you to it, and things like that.
well, I was always creative like any artist as a kid, drawing on the side, doing a little bit of painting here and there. I originally started off at a general TAFE course 5 years ago now, just doing a whole mixture of media, doing drawing, painting, sculpture, and I was introduced to printmaking there. And in that, I fell in love with the process of how it all comes together. And through that pathway of TAFE, it led me into taking up a bachelor's of fine arts and deciding to majoring in print. And I really got to discover a lot about different areas of that process in all its forms, including relief printing, screen printing. Digital printing is technically under the bracket of printmaking, as well as some early onset photography stuff and etching too.
Okay, so you've mentioned a few things there,
Yeah.
like relief printing. I think most people would know what screen printing is. I think relief printing, because I think that's the work I've seen of yours mostly, is relief printing. Is that what you're doing mostly?
Most of the stuff of which I post is relief printing. A lot of lino cuts. So spending a lot of time on those boards, many hours carving it out, inking them up, and popping them through a roll printing press. Yeah.
Yeah, and so is it just lino cut? Like what else? Because etching is relief printing as well, isn't it? It's kind of.
It's put through the same roll press, if that makes sense. And it can also be put through a different type of printing press, but yeah, etching takes on its own form because it's using a different format. Whether it's relief printing, you can use wood block carvings or lino cut carvings. Etchings usually takes on the form of zinc or copper plates. And then from there, you can either do intaglio, which is just dry point needling out your areas, like sketching, or you can dip it into ferric acid baths and let like chemical process eat away at the plate for then you to then cover it with ink.
Yeah, that sounds like the fun one for me. Yeah. So what draws you to printing as opposed to kind of other? I was going to say photographic. So, yeah, photographer, always thinking of that. Artistic mediums and practices.
Well, being a been having so I'm having such a love for history. I'm quite intrigued by the processes of things and how it's all made, and all of these ancient, archaic, we can say, makings predated photography. That's how we were able to have, before there were daguerreotypes, before there were even cyanotypes as well, the original blueprints. People were using printing presses. People were capturing things by lithographs and all these forms. And within that, I drew a love from bringing that analog techniques into the modern world and having that relationship between the analog and digital and just keeping it alive kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I guess what's this? What history? Is there a specific history? Is it just of printing, or is it just a general interest in history?
It is just a general interest that I really enjoy like learning about how it started, like how daguerreotypes were originally by daguerre in France, and how that were made public and then used to create a multitude of one-shot types of photography. Yeah, I just really enjoy reading upon a few things here and there.
Have you played with have you done a daguerreotype?
No, but I have experimented with cyanotypes. I have my profile picture is technically a cyanotype, which I made as well, which I really enjoy that process of having using in modern days polycopy film to then digitally print out a stencil, and then using that as a negative to then expose to the UV light and leave that imprint on the paper.
I'm gonna have to after this show you a few things in the dark room, actually.
Yeah.
So you don't seem to do many of the kind of light-based printing, or not as much as the kind of relief or the kind of mechanical printing processes. It's that's more your bag, it seems, rather than cyanotypes, like daguerreotypes, tin types, and stuff like that.
No, that's not. I am trained into doing those processes, but with my practice and what I want to be talking about, I find it easier to focus more on relief, focus more on screen printing, focus more on like having that relationship with the digital.
Yes, and so is it what makes you lean more towards those rather than the light-based ones?
I think it's got to do more with how I can manipulate them. It just personally, I'm a big fan of stark contrasts, heavy uses of black and white and shadow, and I feel like with lino cut, specifically if you're not doing any reduction lino or multicolored lino, it is just that one color block. And I find that with what I am inspired by my community of practice, I really enjoy tapping into that when creating my own work.
And I saw on your website's not working, by the way.
I'm aware.
I was at your work concerns. It was humanity, gender. Oh my God, I just looked at it too and I forgot. What was the other one?
Movement. Yeah. So the human form and how its body mechanics work is something that I'm very interested in. Capturing those moments from still frames, from photography, and then bringing it to a digital form, bringing it back to an analog form through the printmaking, and then, I guess, re-uploading it onto social media again to make it digital again. I find that that back and forth a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so I guess what's got you curious about humanity?
I guess I don't really tend to get political or anything in my work. I just feel like I put humanity in for the fact that I do deal with a lot of portraiture. It recently has been a lot of self-portraiture, but I am starting to branch out, I feel like now, into more areas.
And so your work's not political. You could argue gender. That's kind of a politically loaded term these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
Well, within the self-portraiture, my latest works have been dealing a lot with masculinity and redefining those terms for bettering mankind or bettering oneself, looking into the traits of toxic masculinity and peer pressure, and specifically a a little bit of self-help, self-deprecation, and how men are easily manipulated or easily manipulated into believing certain things by being on social media at certain times.
Yeah. I'm curious about this now. Like, I guess what kind of manipulation are you kind of talking about?
I'm talking about like when we're on social media, we're stuck into the doom scrolling, and a lot of on my feed, because I have been going through a bit of a body transformation for the last 2 years myself, and I have been bettering myself and keeping myself in shape. I have been getting a lot of gym culture and gym-inspired social media posts and reels and TikToks, and how all of that can seem a bit daunting, a little bit frightening. They make it seem easy to be that way, when in reality it's quite difficult to push your body through those things, and how it can really affect the young male's mindset onto what the perfect body type is.
Yeah, and I don't think there is a perfect body type.
In inverted commas.
The old, I know the gym bro videos.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about there. I've seen them as well. I don't know. And how do you think those two subjects actually translate into printmaking? Like, do you feel that you're able to get the message across if you make a piece with a message in it?
Well, with the work that I'm relating this to was a piece that got exhibited at the graduate exhibition last year through RMIT, and that was a piece I called "Am I Enough?", which had screen prints and digital prints, with the subject matter being myself looking in the mirror, in both the digital print with text of my inner intrusive thoughts behind me, of all this negative commentary on myself, on my body, and the way it was exhibited in the space was the digital print was on one wall, and I had a series of screen prints on mirrors on the other one. So relating that to printmaking, in a lot of our terms, in a lot of our processes, it is based on that reflection, right? You have to work backwards so that when you print something, it's flipped on the other way. You have to think in that reverse mindset. And so having that mirror in that form just brings it back to those connotations of printmaking.
And with these subjects, masculinity and stuff like that, what have you gotten any responses from? I guess you're trying to reach people on some level.
Yeah.
On this subject, have you got any responses?
I was actually quite successful on that. I did get a lot of responses saying that the text that was used in the artwork actually transcended gender. That a lot of the words that I was saying to myself could be related to anyone, really, because a lot of the language which I used was look at your hairline, you're receding, look at your chest is so flat. Obviously, my relationship with that being a male body, being pec muscles, not being muscle enough, having enough muscle on it, but then that could relate to the female form with a lot of their body image problems. There were other words like you still have love handles. All of these comments on the body were intentionally left ambiguous so that anyone could relate to them.
Yeah, and so the response you got was from men and women and everything in between.
Yeah, all people found
Yeah.
it quite successful. It actually won a prize at the show, which I'm quite happy with as well. And yeah, I found that work is quite it's quite the build up in terms of my time at university and really coming together for this one moment. All of this work that I've been doing on the sides with all these different modes of making and building myself as an artist, finding my voice, and now I'm ready to take on the world and know what I'm speaking towards in terms of
And it's
making.
It's interesting because there's not that much work out there, or not that many artists, from what I've seen, kind of tackling this subject, masculinity. Have you? I mean, you might know some. Are there people out there, artists out there, tackling the same subjects as you? Because I don't see it much.
I think there are a lot out there that do touch upon it broadly. I mean, it is quite an extensive topic when you talk about it in a broad sense. But with what I want to focus on is taking it from a perspective of someone who has been in those spaces and bringing that positivity from it, but understanding the negativity that comes with it. And so having that relationship with the gym, with working out, with having that culture of people coming together to better themselves, and yet also shining a light onto the downsides of that, of having this constant reassurance, this constant need for validation on themselves, even though in reality it shouldn't be about that. You should be comfortable within your own body. You should be comfortable with yourself at all times. And it's about learning to love yourself without having this need to constantly judge yourself. Like, why do they have all these mirrors at the gym where people go up and flex and show themselves off to themselves, and yet in their minds they're still picking at their insecurities and their flaws, even though some of them could be bodybuilders or deadlifters that have like 5% body fat. They will still find those flaws within themselves.
Yeah, 5% isn't 4.
No, exactly. The grass is always greener on the other side. You can always be better. You can always be thinner. And just this, it can be quite unhealthy to do that, rather than to say, I am enough. This is enough for me. This is a good progression. I am comfortable with this. It's better than I was before. I don't need to keep this going. Or it's good for me to maintain this rather than to push it even further.
You mentioned the need for validation and things like that, and these are obviously things that you and probably most people struggle with. What I want to know is does that kind of happen in your art as well? The need for a lot of artists have a need for validation with the art that they make. Do you have that?
I am not that big on social media myself, so I've learned by being an artist to post a lot more on my Instagram and keep up a relationship on that. I do feel that in itself can be a form of validation that I'm seeking. Looking at the likes, looking at the comments, it can feel that urge to be like, am I enough? Is this good enough? Whose attention is this grabbing? Am I getting this demographic? Am I getting this out to enough people? So that is a learning process that I'm going through at the moment with just my social media. But within my own art, I feel like at some levels I am comfortable enough with myself, and in other levels I'm not.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll sit and think to myself why I make things, and sometimes I do think that people who get into art, like right or wrong, and maybe they don't even know it, and maybe I don't know it still, that you can't. It's this desire to be seen, like so people can see that you've made something, and hopefully praise it, which is indirectly like praise on you.
Yeah, it comes from this natural human desire to survive, to leave behind something that will live on beyond you, to build a legacy for yourself. And in that, you want to build an audience, you want to build a career in that, because you want to be seen, you want to be heard, you want to feel validated within that self.
Yeah, I think that desire for validation is it's universal.
Yeah.
And like even with the likes on Instagram, if I post something and it doesn't get many likes, it bothers me a bit. I start thinking, well, that piece of art that I posted is just not very good. Yeah, that's the immediate reaction, even though it's not true. It's the algorithm and all that other bullshit.
Doesn't matter how many hours you've put into it. Even with printmaking too, which is a lot of it, hours and hours of process making. The last piece that I made, I spent 16, 17 hours simply carving at it. And there are so many intricate details in it that I knew in making it was going to be worth the reward. And when you don't see that on social media, you feel that within yourself that, was it worth it? But you've got to take it with a grain of salt that not everyone is on Instagram. Not everyone is on social media, that you need to have your work in other spaces to showcase it so that people can have that relationship with it physically. And you can have that conversation with them through that.
Yeah, and definitely like somebody praising your work in real life to you means so much more than a few likes on Instagram. It's a big difference when you can stand next to someone looking at your framed work on a wall, and even better when they buy it, because it means you don't have to store it, and it means they liked it enough to part with some money. But yeah, that kind of I think that is what maybe drives some artists initially, is that just to go back to that feeling of being seen, being understood, that they have a place in the world, that they have some sort of value.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that if you don't get a good response, you see yourself as less valued. Yeah.
I see a lot of artists out there creating art Instagrams and treating it like a blog, or treating it like a look into their lifestyles. And within that comes that need for validation, comes that need for needing to be seen. Whereas my approach for my social media is to have it more as a portfolio, to say that, look, taking that step back from it, from an emotional state, and just looking at it as a business thing. Where there are no more business cards anymore, we all got Instagrams, like, who are you? Oh, can I have your Instagram? And then boom, there's your connection made, there's your contact made, and you can build your network from there. Rather than if you spend a lot of time on your phone and you spend a lot of time treating it like your journal, then you are going to fall into that trap. And that's just how I feel personally about that.
Yeah, and it's mine. My Instagram's the same. I just post pictures basically, and yeah, and it seems the more kind of personal ones seem to get more engagement. But I just like you, I'm not into it.
I'd rather
into it.
yeah. I'm a little bit old school. I'd rather have that face to face when it comes to making those connections like that, and just having it in the back pocket to keep that contact rather than showing myself and my personal life to the world. I have a personal Instagram for that.
Yeah. And then it's almost like you become just this online personality. That's it. It's sort of like you become almost one-dimensional, and there's a risk of that. Not that I know, because I'm not that popular on Instagram. Let's be honest.
Neither am I, man. So
yeah. The other thing that I didn't mention out of the three things, which was humanity, gender, and movement. Movement. You do karate.
yes,
There's a lot of movement in that.
I've been studying Shukukai martial arts karate for the last decade now, and I am about to be grading for my first Dan black belt in December, which I'm quite proud of that achievement. It's taken me a long time to get there, and within that comes a lot of discipline, a lot of learning to be still with yourself, focusing on your breathing, focusing on calming your mind so that your body can perform. And in that, I've taken those lessons into the rest of my life, into my art making too. Whether I'm stressing over a work, I can always rely on my breathing. Whether I know it's going to take a long time, the end result will be worth it. Just having that patience with the art is a relationship that I have with it. A lot of people, they seem to get overly emotional with it, and which can be interesting when it's used for action style painting or impulsive move sets in their stroke pattern or whatever they're making. But for me, I just feel like I need that time to breathe, to focus on myself so that I can get the best out of myself when I'm making. And I've learned those lessons through my karate.
So obviously, karate's helped your art making.
It has.
Has art making helped your karate?
Well, funnily enough, last year and the year before, I ended up making 2 works based on my martial arts. One of them I titled simply Shukukai, which is the karate style. And I managed to, in inspiration of action painting, I had my fellow, it's called karateka, when you have like peers who do karate with you in the same dojo. We did a performance piece together where we were wearing disposable painters coveralls, and we covered our hands and feet in paint and had fighting bouts with each other. Obviously, safely, we weren't going too hard on each other, but leaving those imprints of the hand and the foot on the coveralls, and then leaving those as art pieces hanging from the wall.
That's really cool. I love that.
So it does come back to a lot of that gestural abstraction, but also to original forms of printmaking, like leaving a stamp on the wall, thinking about that format outside of that matrix. And the last one, which I did last year, I titled Budo, which is in building off the last piece. We had simply put paint on the bottom of our feet and had canvas on the ground and performed our kata, which is our choreographed move sets, which is how in martial arts, we learn form and technique. And by having that, I was filming that for a video component. I had kept the canvases for up on the wall. And then afterwards, I had interviewed my fellow karateka on their thoughts on how karate has improved their lives and what is their relationship with it and how do they view forms of masculinity, the difference between violence and discipline, and how people who usually study martial arts correctly, let's say, or in a more passive way, are a lot less inclined to start up fights themselves, knowing the dangers of it and knowing how to control themselves.
Is there? It's a bit of a segue actually, because you said something that piqued my interest. Can you be violent and disciplined?
Well, the way I like to view it is that the untrained person is a lot more dangerous than the trained person. It takes a lot of willpower and skill for someone not to engage in a fight, to know when to step back and to diffuse a situation rather than force yourself into one, is something that you learn through discipline and you learn through patience. And even though you are learning to punch and you are learning to kick to hurt someone, you are not learning it for the want to hurt someone. You are bettering yourself when you're in those spaces. You are there for your own journey. You're not there for bloodlust or for seeking power.
Do you get people who are kind of coming into the sport? Is it correct to say sport?
It can be a sport in areas where they do tournaments, like the 2020 Olympics, how it was featured in Tokyo, Japan. That sort of style of karate, which you might have seen, is sport, tournament style karate. But then when you have people like in the UFC who do MMA, who step away a lot more from the original forms of the discipline, they try to just pick the best pieces from only technique aspects and then put them in a cage and say, go. That's when you get a lot of violent people just wanting to beat each other up. And that in themselves causes a lot of toxic masculinity mindsets.
Yeah. Are you coming across other creatives in karate?
It's sort of all walks of life can come through karate. It doesn't necessarily have to be creative. Within my own dojo, I am the only artist that I know, but there are lawyers there are accountants there are entrepreneurs there are teachers there who teach little kids. And they have found that they've taken the lessons that they've learned from karate from when they were little kids themselves, been in the same space for 20 years, teaching those breathing techniques to children on how to steady themselves, steady their minds so that they don't react in certain ways impulsively.
And so, I don't know, I'm going to guess and that you're probably pretty disciplined before you started this, weren't you?
With karate or with art?
Karate, both. You're already a disciplined person?
I'd like to say I was a bit of a quiet kid growing up.
You seem like an introvert.
Yeah. Quite introverted, to myself, a little bit quirky here and there. But yeah, I find that my martial arts has definitely given myself confidence in my ability, in my technique, and bringing those lessons into my art making, I find very helpful. That I just need to be confident within myself that I am creating something that for me, and I am creating something that I know will be good enough for me.
And so, like, let's say, kind of a hypothetical situation, you're doing a lino cut and it's just not working. You're doing the carving, whatever, and it's just not working. Most people, I'd throw my hands up and be like, oh, I'm done. I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to quit. I'm going to go move to another state. Like, very dramatic, right? I'm guessing you don't have that. You're able to just kind of go through it.
I still have those moments.
Really?
I still get stressed out and kick up a fuss and be throwing, not literally, but mentally throwing tables and stepping away from it. But it takes a lot to just come back to it, to know when to step away and be like that's enough for today. I can't do this anymore. But then a lot more to step back into it and be like, okay, I'm ready to take this on with a new set of eyes. I'm ready to take this on after having a tea or having a walk or getting out or moving or even going to the gym, going to karate, having other aspects of my life fill that space for me to calm down, to come back into it. A lot of people think that when it comes to anything, to be 100% obsessed with it, which, yes, can be good, but at the same time, you're not giving yourself any room to breathe, or you're not giving yourself any room to grow in other areas. So that when you do feel that pressure, you do feel that stress of wanting to kick up and throw things away and give up, you're not having that time to step away and really reflect on it. And it's those moments of having that time apart from it when you're able to come back to it and really bring something new to it, or just put your head back down and get right back into it. That willpower, that confidence, that skill comes from discipline, self-discipline.
And so, how do you know when you're doing too much, maybe, or not enough? Is it that frustration point where you kind of figuratively throw the table over? Is that how you know that's it? I have to stop for a little bit and maybe do something else.
Most of the time, I find I have an end goal, which I know I want to achieve with it. And maybe in the last few moments of in the creative process, I might make a few changes to what I am envisioning in my mind. But in those moments where I know I've done too much, I always rely on support. I have my family and friends, which I am in contact with quite frequently, and I rely on them and their opinions, not all the time, because most of them aren't artists and sometimes don't get it. But I rely on them to ground me, in a sense, on where they think things should be going, or just based on our conversations on my work or on my vision of it. They're able to help me guide it into a place which I know comes from them wanting the best from me. So you're not making things by yourself. You're always being influenced by other people, and it's just about who you're letting in to help you create art.
So who are you letting in?
Mostly my family. I live at home with my parents and my siblings, and I do really value their opinions, even though they are not within the creative industry. But I think that might stem from something of, making the family proud, but I just when they're proud of me, I'm proud of myself. So I want to make work that is the best from me, and I know that if I'm giving it my all for them, I'm giving it my all for myself.
Yeah, and it sounds like your whole family's very supportive.
They are.
Of your practice and all that. Does that surprise you? It almost seems like it surprises you.
I didn't originally start in art. I ended up there just by really having time apart from myself. I started off in engineering, actually.
Nice.
In school, I was quite academic with mathematics and physics and languages too. And I thought I was heading down a certain direction in that, being surrounded by those subjects, surrounded by those kind of people in that mindset of very logical thinking, very business forward thinking. I found that stress quite early on and needed that break away from it. And so having that time to reflect on myself and having my family there to support me during that time really helped understand who I was and what I wanted to do. And so when it comes to them supporting my art, they're understanding that this is me and this is who I am and what I want to be doing. And now at the end of my university degree, finishing this year, I have set myself up to take away the dreams and focus on goals.
Yeah.
And not having it up in the clouds as like, oh, I want this for myself or I want this for myself, but seeing it as a staircase to be like, these are the steps on where I want to be and this is how to get there.
Yeah, that sounds like you got quite a logical foundation there, which is probably helpful because a lot of artists, and myself included, are kind of a little all over the place, which is cool. It's fun. Are you still? Do you have like physics and engineering and can't believe I'm going to say this, mathematics as an interest still? Is it something that you still kind of I guess consume or read about and things like that?
Not really anymore. Look, I still have peers from school who did go down those paths, which I keep in contact with, and they're doing very well for themselves. But for myself, I am just interested in what I want to be interested in. I read up on things that take interest on me, whether that be articles or whether that be fictional books, just to help my creative mind flow. So I guess I have taken a step back from that academia and really embraced the creative a lot more.
And interest in engineering probably helps you with the movement part of your interest. Biomechanics. I'm sure you could understand that more than a lot of other people.
Yeah, even with relation to gym work and karate work, biomechanics are very important. Understanding how the body moves, how to manipulate it in a certain way, and then being able to capture that in my art making is something that I feel like has this intersectionality, that it all just intertwines within each other and just builds something quite profound and multidimensional.
Yeah, and I mean, we were speaking before we started, and I mentioned how myself included and other people see art making as a trade. And I think with, I guess, your interest in kind of, I guess, trade-like subjects, you know what I mean, that are a bit more rigid, it kind of makes sense to me. I don't know what other people think about this, because I've mentioned it, and some people look at me like I'm putting artists down, which I don't think it's. I'm not doing that at all.
See, I agree with you with that. The way I've managed to talk with people who don't understand what it's like to be an artist professionally, I've said to them that it's a soul trader's gig. It's something that you have to build up yourself. And to put it in people outside of that industry in their layman terms, I've said to them, think of it like an actor's job. Like they're putting themselves out there with auditions, with small plays, this and that, trying to build a name, build an audience, build a market for themselves. But with an artist, it's a lot more difficult because there has always been this split between logical side of the brain and creative side of the brain, when in reality, the brain isn't two halves, the brain is just one brain.
Yeah.
So you have to have that. You have to not only have those switches when you're creating and then switch it back onto the logical side. You have to understand that it all flows together. That yes, we are making stuff and being creative and allowing ourselves to fully express within our pieces, but then how do we make money off it? How do we put it out there into the world where we're able to make a living off it? And that just comes with understanding of a market and a target-based audience and seeing it like a trade. You're right in that.
And I think maybe some people take issue with the word trade. Or if I said craft, I think, but I use trade purposely because it's like a trade. You kind of serve an apprenticeship in a way, whether you learn on your own or get trained under someone.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
It's not like people are born talented in something. No, it's something that is built up over time with practice and with time putting into it. And that's why I love printmaking so much, because it is 90% of it is that process, is understanding how the ferric acid reacts to the work after having it in a development, when you're doing a photographic etching or something, or whether you're doing a cyanotype or whether you're doing a relief printing, understanding the pressure of your roll press for how hard you want it to be printed. There is that skill that comes with that learning in it, and that is a trade, and that is something that you are selling your skill set for. You are showing that you are a master of your work, and this is why we price our works the way we do, because it is a lot of ourselves, yes, but it is a lot of our time, it is a lot of our effort, and it is a lot of our skill that is going into this work.
I want to... We're going to wrap up soon, but I want to ask something. History. I know you mentioned you've got an interest in history, karate, Japanese history, and printmaking. What is the history of printmaking in Japan? I'm curious about that. I'm guessing you know a little bit. I'm just looking for a bit of education here, actually, now, being a bit selfish. Have you looked into much of that, Japan's printmaking history?
I know that they have a long, extensive history with woodblock printing over there. I myself am not that knowledgeable on it, but I will be in Japan for a study tour where I will get to experience a lot of their contemporary work, a lot of their traditional work. And so if you want to meet back in about a couple months, I can definitely help fill in some gaps for you on that, because I too will be in the process of learning that. But yeah, that is an area of my knowledge which I have gaps on myself, and I am going there with that mindset of being a karateka myself, being a martial artist, being a printmaker, and ready to really tackle on Japan and see what it has to teach me.
I think you got a huge opportunity here to really dive into something here. I'm pretty sure like Japan's well known for their inks.
Yes. And paper making too.
And paper,
Yeah, which is a big part of printmaking. Yes.
You're gonna. It's such a privilege to be going there to do things you love, and to kind of see firsthand, possibly like things that can help you in your journey as well. Just I was hoping, like I said, I have to wait 2 months. That's fine. All right, like I'm patient enough. I'm patient enough for that. But and when are you heading there?
I will be there from the middle of June, and I'll be back by middle of July. Yeah. So
you'll be there a month.
Yeah, a month. Yeah. A month. Yeah, half of it through the tour, and then half of it doing some personal things, doing some karate things whilst I'm there too. So yeah, it'll be quite a journey, and it will definitely impact my art making for sure. With this new journey that I'm going on over the next 6 months, I feel like I'm going to be really diving into some new things, which I'm excited about. Just heading away from the self-portraiture and just finding a new angle.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Curtis. I almost said Costa. So I probably should say your name is Curtis Costa.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm looking forward, and I'm sure other people are looking forward to seeing this kind of new direction you're going in, and the work it produces. All right.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.